Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
I'll
just
start
hit the go button. Here we go.
I did. I hit the button. Go. You're up.
All right.
Go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Bufnagle, the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Harry. I'm excited for the show today because I think we've got a smorgasbord of questionnaires. Or questions, not questionnaires, right? We're not filling out surveys here.
There's no survey involved. No
Unless
test
we want to send out a survey to the listeners, but that's extra work for you guys. But you know what? I'm glad to be here. I'm joined by Rafe. How are you today?
Harry, I'm great. It's a great day to be doing a podcast with you, as they say. And you know what the best thing about the podcast is it is Bufnagle the podcast. And the best thing about that is we have the world's greatest listeners who have turned us from a ragtag team of whatever we are.
Top 100,000 podcasts.
Well, we're in the global top 10% podcast, and we went up another spot. I'll tell you that later. But our ranking went up a thing. All
right.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. And it's because of listeners just like you out there, all right? So those of you who put in your hard-earned time, effort, and energy to listen to the Buff, we appreciate you. We're glad that you are here. And we invite you to share the love, share the Buff, tell your friend to listen, and you will get a free episode. And, leave us a 5-star review. That'd be great. Subscribe. That'd be even greater. And write nice things about us. And don't forget to call your mom. Okay, so those sorts of things. But seriously, we appreciate you guys. And you are our marketing arm. So please exercise that muscle. And like I said, share the Buff, share the love. And
that's a great pun. You are our marketing arm.
Yes.
Get strong. Yeah.
Yes. That's why I get the big bucks here.
I don't know if you've been doing that for weeks now, but that's probably the first time I've picked up on it.
So there we are. Yes, it's a great day to be doing a podcast with you. And I hear we have a little different, how should I say it, a motif?
Non-standard, non-linear.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have some listener questions. Is that the idea?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions coming in from listeners about, hopefully each of these is 8 to 10 minutes. So pick and choose as you please. If you don't like a question, skip forward to the next one, and we're sure you'll find something that you like.
Well, but you never know what's going to happen, right? We could start with a question about like stroganoff, and it could end up talking about snow shovels. Yeah, you have no idea where this is going. So don't hit that fast forward button too early.
I think that's right. So the first one up, I think you've got a list here, Rafe.
Yeah.
What do you got for us?
Well, the first question is kind of it's a simple one. It's just who are your favorite saints is the question. And Harry, I'm going to let you go first because I could go on this one for days.
I believe I am woefully underprepared for this question.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
But who do you like? I mean, so people think of, so
here's how I kind of, I really try to humanize the saints.
All right.
In a very I like to humanize the saints, and I like to think of them as prodding the devil, kind of like a ha, you can't get me, which is the complete opposite of what a saint is, right? A saint is humble and has reverence towards God, but which is all these things that Satan does not have. But for the most part, Satan hates the saints.
Yep.
He despises them because of their humility. So I enjoy that fact about many of the saints.
So you like the idea that they are getting under his skin, so to speak.
I like the idea. I have this image in my mind of spiritual warfare being actual warfare. And every single one of the saints is like Saint Michael and just has a sword through the snake's neck.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
That's what I like. Or the image of a Saint Teresa.
Which
with
one?
the rose petals on top of Satan.
Oh, yes,
Lucifer.
yes.
Yep, that's a good one.
Okay, all right.
But no particular actual saint. I do enjoy all of the apparitions, the images of Mary across the entire world.
Those have been like there are. Wow. So, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago on when we talked about gas pipes and standards. Somehow we turned that into discussion of the tremendous variety of the saints. And I think, like, if you want to go to apparitions, to me, the apparition of apparitions is Our Lady of Guadalupe, and we will be doing that hopefully between now and December 11th. Is that right?
Sounds right.
12th. I have to go look that up. But that we will have a formal discussion of the apparition to Juan Diego in Mexico. And the big thing for me, Harry, is I'm gonna have to learn how to pronounce all those Aztec words. And but that is the one for me, the apparition that's the one that turns my head. That's the thing I want to do.
It's very easy to see, right? You can go down to Mexico City and you can see
the okay. So I was at this convent in Leavenworth, Kansas. Okay, the Sisters of Charity in Leavenworth. With this pew bench in the front hall of the house here came from the Sisters of Charity in Leavenworth, Kansas, and they were having
must have left quite the impression.
Well, they were having it, like, it was in the bulletin, and it said that they were selling, they were refurnishing the church there, and they had all these pew benches for sale. And I was like, well, I'll take a pew bench. I mean, how could that be wrong? You put it in your front hall, or you put it on the kitchen table, or you put it somewhere where a bunch of people sit. And as long as it's not too big, it works very well. So we have a pew bench from them. It's about, what's that, 4.5, 5 feet long?
Yeah.
And it's solid oak, and it's a gigantic, very heavy piece of furniture with a nailer on the back, which makes it fun. And but we got this from the Sisters of Charity, and they wanted a whopping $40 for it, and I was like, I can't just give
can't rip you off that badly.
So I had to give them more. But we were touring the convent house, or the Abbot house, or whatever it was where they lived. We were touring that, and they had a little Our Lady of Guadalupe shrine there, and we stopped there, and she says, and little Sister Beatrice or whoever it was, and she said, "Well, this is Our Lady of Guadalupe," and that's exactly how she sounded. This is our Lady of Guadalupe, and of course it's the picture of the Tillman there, and as she is all being all Mary like, and I said to the nun lady, I said, I've got a jacket with that printed on the inside.
And when I opened it, all these roses
fall out. And she was like, oh, and then she gave me that look.
Smacked you, right?
No, she gave me that look.
It sent you the back of the line for confession.
Yeah, that's right. She says, confessional's right down here. So I do not have a jacket with the Our Lady of Guadalupe on the inside, but you will understand that story when we tell it to you officially. But one of my favorite saints, and outside of the Mary apparitions, is Maximilian Kolbe, who I think I got to believe everybody knows this, but there's a lot of things that I know that I think everybody else knows, and
I'm not sure if everyone knows, because I really didn't read a lot on him until like the last year or so.
So the short version of the story is he was a Catholic priest in Germany in the 30s. And he got rounded up by the Nazis because Nazis are bad guys. And he was at Auschwitz, I think, or if not, one of the other bad ones. They are all bad, I guess. And somebody escaped from some barracks. And because of that, the commandant decided that he was going to randomly select a certain number of people, a certain number of men from this barracks, and they were going to be starved in an underground bunker until they died. And he pulled, 9 or 10 of the guys out there, and one guy expressed tremendous sorrow at being chosen because he said, "I have a wife and I have a kid," or wife and kids, and Father Colby was in the barracks, but he did not get chosen. But he went to the commandant. He said, "I will take this guy's place," and he took the guy's place, and they took him to the underground bunker, and this 10 or 15 of them all died over the course of 2 weeks. And he I guess, what's the word? He ministered to the,
probably.
right. And he literally did what you're supposed to do, which was to give your life for others. And the guy that survived that, he was present when JP2 did the canonization of Maximilian Kolbe in 83 or whenever it was, whenever that story made it all the way out and he got canonized. And he has a big family, the
generations.
His progeny are all around now because of this act, this selfless gift of self, right? Where you gave yourself
gift of charity.
Yes, it was a charity thing. And so I think that's, if you want to look him up, Maximilian Kolbe, Kolbe. And you can read his story. I'm sure there's movies and there are all sorts of stories, and we will keep him in our thoughts. So that's my thought is probably Maximilian Kolbe. But all the other, like Augustine was great, and like
Aquinas is good.
I mean, it's like there's, like I said, there are so many of them, and then there's there's a family that's being canonized together. Harry, did you read this one?
No, I know there's a husband and wife that are recently canonized, but not a family.
Well, there's a whole family, 7 of them. I think it's 7 of them. They were in Poland in World War II, and they were hiding. They were hiding some of their Jewish neighbors from the Nazi bad guys, and the Nazi bad guys found out, and they executed the whole family, including the pregnant mother with this little baby. And I've heard different stories. One of them is that she was shot and died with the baby, and then one that she gave birth right at or during or before or after, right at the same time as the execution, something like that. So, but all of them, they shot all of them, all the family members, all the little kids. It's just, evil does that. And martyrdom, we know the names of the family of the martyrs, but we don't know the names of the guys who pulled the trigger.
It's kind of funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, like I said, all the bad guys, they're all the same, Harry. They're all the same. So anyway, you can be a saint too. That's what you are called to be. And that is your job as parents, is to make sure your kids get to heaven. So, getting into Yale is good. Getting into heaven's better.
I'm sure it is. Maybe one can help you with the other. And that's probably up to the listeners to decide.
Yeah, I guess so.
But, for the listeners out there that are not Catholic or not Christian, another question that we have is, why do we on the podcast talk so much about Imago Dei and Christendom and humility and giving of oneself? What's the purpose behind it?
Yeah. So that has come up a number of times about why, I'm not Catholic, so this. I'm sorry.
So it doesn't apply to me.
It doesn't apply to me. Well, yeah. Well, yes and no, and or I'm not Christian, or I don't believe in any of this, or I just like the history stuff, or whatever. Well, the history of the West, which is a lot of what we talk about, although it's not the only thing we talk about. The history of the West is the history of Christendom, and Christendom sits on, or the West sits on these 2 pillars of Athens and Jerusalem. All right. So there's the pagan philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome, and then the Christianization of those attitudes into what became the glories of Christendom, which is essentially Western Europe. Although those ideas have spread around the globe, and we now swim in a water that is highly, I guess it's highly Christendomed.
Sure. Yeah.
Christianified. So the world we live in, the understanding that we have of the nature of good and evil, the ideas of what is right and wrong, and how to tell that sort of thing, and the things that we value as societies. These are, we live in a pretty secular society now, but the ideals and the values that people uphold come from Christian values.
Right.
And
they're
those
not uniquely secular.
Right. And you really can't get them. I will argue you can't come to those values from a vacuum. They have to come from somewhere. And I argue that they come from the concept of Imago Dei. That's where it comes to me. And everything that we do there is that's why I start with that so often and come back to that is that's the starting point. That's the starting point of all of Western philosophy, because it puts the individual as important. It's not the state. It's not the emperor. It's not the commandant. It is the person. And the reason the person is of value is because the person is made in the image and likeness of God. That concept was contrary. Okay, that's a change from Athens to Jerusalem or to Rome, you could say, to the Christianized Rome. Is that concept that these little people who were slaves or were wheat farmers, or they were just soldiers on the line, or if they were nobodies, they were all made in the image and likeness of God, and therefore had eternal and infinite value. And that, if you start there, all the stuff that comes out, that follows, comes out through the church. And it has taken 2,000 years to build that up and to generate that. Now, the things that we see that are wrong in current society, or that we have seen wrong in the past, the reason we know that it's wrong, the reason we know that abuses in the church are wrong, is that, well, we have a standard against which to measure them, and they violate some of those fundamental premises. And so whether you're if you believe in God or not, God's still there whether you believe in him or not. It doesn't matter to him.
It's a very C.S. Lewis approach.
Well, and I can't. There are things that are outside of this material world, and that is a thing that is really it's taken me a long time to get to that, because I grew up in a world that has become very, very materialistic. All right, and it's not a materialistic like I only want money, but the only thing that matters are the things that you can feel and touch. And I will argue that there is more to this world than just those things that you can touch and feel. So, and measure and quantify. All right. Newtonian physics can get us to the moon. All right. But it can't help us understand why Maximilian Kolbe would take that guy's place in the death camp.
Yeah. I don't know. If you're sitting in Colby's spot, it doesn't get you anywhere. You have no power to gain. You have no money to gain. The only thing that you're doing is you're giving of yourself. So that should probably be the best example. A lot of people point back to a golden rule, which comes from the Bible, of treat your neighbor like you would treat yourself.
Yep.
So wouldn't you want somebody to stand up for you and take your place? Wouldn't that be great?
Well, that's the thing. And we are so deep in these waters that it's very difficult to even conceive of the idea of not that. But I think, Harry, and I've heard a lot these days, a question about, like, say, current college students. If you talk to them about the landings at Normandy on D-Day, could they understand? Like, a lot of college kids are saying these days that why would anybody do that? Why don't you why not just concede?
Why not just ask nicely?
Well, either ask nicely or just say, well, okay, fine, you can be in charge. You can, it's not. I'm not a Jew. It's not a problem for me.
It's really easy to see evil. It's really easy to see evil when it's staring you down the barrel of a gun.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to see evil when it's in the shadows. And a lot of those things these days are weaving in and out of media or people or from ideas or self-centeredness, that's really hard to compare versus, being blown to smithereens or gassed in a chamber at Auschwitz.
Yeah,
it's very different.
It's easy to see that is evil, right? But it's hard to see that some of the things that are going on in broad daylight and in front, being applauded and championed by certain members of the, I'll call it the celebrity class. It's hard to see that those things are evil. And sometimes it takes really thinking and working through the process to figure out why that's the case.
Right. And it's not necessarily the same evil.
No.
Right. Because evil will manifest itself in different forms and factions. Shooting and killing somebody and murdering someone is probably evil. Cheating on your wife is evil, but it's a different thing. Right. So you have to recognize where those two things are. And if society starts to blur the boundaries for some of these other things, well, evil kind of gets lost in the sauce.
Yeah, right. So let's.
I don't know where the original question was.
Well, here's the original question here, and here's how it ties into that. All right. So there's a couple things here. That concept that there are things as evil, there are things that are evil, and they are not just societal constructs. There are things, and so you pointed that out, is that cheating on your wife and murdering somebody in cold blood, those are two things that are of the same nature. And you know that because of how you were raised, but there are people now that are starting to not be raised that way, and they don't see those as the same thing. Right. And so I would put forward that there are things like that there are fundamental things out there that don't exist in the real world, like the concept of evil, the concept of good, the concept of justice, the concept of honor, gratitude, those kinds of things. Duty that you can't measure the way you can measure the volume of this soda can. Okay, so it's important that we learn that, because otherwise we're going to be stuck in a position where we can't navigate a difficult world without the tools that the last 2,500 to 3,000 years of
progress
have given us. So whether you are a hardcore trad Catholic, whether you're a lazy Catholic, whether you're one of my Protestant friends, whether you're a Jew, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Hindu or a Wiccan or just a complete non-believer, there are things that are still true, and it's very important that you come to understand what those things are before you're put in a position where you have to try to figure that out on the fly. Because if you have to try to figure that out on the fly, pretty soon you're going to be one of the guys that has been conscripted into loading the other people into boxcars. And that's why I talk so much about Imago Dei, because I think that's fundamentally important. And one of these days, Harry, I'm going to go back to Genesis, and we'll talk about the fall and the apple and Adam and Eve and the nature of sin, and all, like, everything you need to know about sin is in that little story in Genesis. And we'll go back and we'll talk about that one of these days. But that's an excellent cliffhanger and an excellent segue. It's coming up. Right? Yes. Okay. So there.
Set your alarms, set your clocks for Tuesday morning, the something.
Some Tuesday in the future. That will be coming.
Yeah.
All right.
What's the next question you got?
Well, people have asked this question. So, like, what if you learned doing this podcast? They say, you're at 150 some episodes, and for what it's worth, for podcasts, that's a lot of episodes. And we've been doing it weekly, pretty much. We've had occasional off weeks here or there. We've had a couple bonus episodes here or there. What have you learned doing the podcast, and what's your take? 3 years into this thing, it's been 3 years. What's your feeling on bufnagle the podcast?
So I would say, mostly because I've only been doing this co-host stuff semi-recently, right? Past couple months, it was you and Zach for a while. He got busy. You kind of did it solo-ish, or conscripted me into this room. But before then, I tried to do director type stuff and lead you guys not astray, which obviously didn't work, and now we're here 150 episodes later. For me, it's kind of twofold, right? I've learned how to speak betterer.
Better. Yes, you have.
No, I've tried to do that. It's nice to have a conversation knowing that I have to talk to you and I have to kind of give information to other people at the same time.
Okay.
I can tell people that I do a podcast with my dad, which I think you've got a lot more on that than I do as far as that kind of thread goes. And lastly, I enjoy it. I wish I could dedicate more time to writing out my notes prior to episodes. It's probably the only thing I would fix at this point. And eventually I'm telling you, I'm going to come out, mark your calendars for Tuesday the somethingth plus 7 days for what I'm trying to do for Puddleglum's speech in The Silver Chair by C.S. Lewis.
Yeah. So these are, that is it has been unbelievably not what I expected. And I say that, like, I had no idea what it was going to be. Zach was always like, "Hey, we should do a podcast. Hey, we should do a podcast." It's interesting because that's how everybody sounds to me. Hey, you should do, why do you have
sure. And that's why a lot of people do podcasts for 10 to 15 episodes, right, and it kind of trails off.
And to his credit, he laid out a lot of the groundwork that we have at present and how we got it going. So, but the thing that has gotten me is I have learned so much stuff about all these things that we talk about. What's the tagline? Science, technology, history, philosophy, leadership, success. I've learned so many of those things, and I've learned mostly things on history, philosophy, probably in this order: history, philosophy, science, technology, leadership, success. I think the last two are less. I think we cover them less often than maybe.
I think those are just kind of subcategories of the other things. They come out through the other topics.
Yeah, I think if you know those other things, it's easy to do those last two, right? And that's what I'm gonna. I'll park on that one. I'll say that's where those come from. But I've learned so much. Oh my goodness, I've learned these things. I remember when I was reading and learned that Alexander the Great was tutored by the one and only Aristotle. I mean, that just blew me away. And Zach was like, "Well, yeah, Dad, everybody knows that." And I was like, "I didn't know that."
Yep.
I didn't know that. And there's been so many things that I've picked up, and what has really happened to me is I used to see the world, I guess, as like now, like looking backwards in time. Now, World War II, the American Revolution, Columbus, everything else. Right?
And then crucifixion, birth of Christ, and then you go further back. It's just Aristotle, Plato, Socrates.
And there's some pyramids. There's pyramids at the beginning. Okay,
right.
And it has been like, so Zach pointed this stuff out. Like all these great cultures from the past, they're all kind of co-located in time. The Egyptians and the Romans and the Greeks, they were all. I mean, they kind of went in. They didn't go in that order. They went Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans. But even the Egyptians and the Romans were together. Like Cleopatra and Julius Caesar, they were buddies. I was like, really? Think about that. Do you ever think that those two, right? And then the pyramids are so old. They were old to Cleopatra. They were so old that even in Cleopatra's time, they really weren't sure where they came from. No one knows how they made them, right? Mm-hmm. And then everybody wanted to be Greek. That's a thing that I've learned. But I've learned all this other stuff, like the Dark Ages weren't dark, right?
Not in the slightest.
No, they were full of all sorts of wonderful technological advances, and the people in the past. And this is probably the biggest shift that I've had is, I think, because of my schooling, and I'm talking just my basic public education schooling, is this. It pushes on you this idea that we are more sophisticated now because we have so much more technology. And like, we got vaccines here, we got an internet, we got podcasts, and we got noise canceling headphones, and we got all of this great stuff. And therefore, because of that, we should have a say in everything. and everybody that went before us should be thrown out.
And everyone else before us was wrong because we know so many things.
We know, right? Because there were things that were wrong. There's a model of the solar system that posits that the Earth sits at the center and everything goes around it. And my take has become nuanced in this that well, you can predict all the things you need to predict from them out, right? But it's a really hard thing to do. You need to have these magic spheres and these epicycles and all sorts of weird things like it's too hard to do. And the Newtonian gravitational thing gives you the Copernicus kind of model and the Kepler's laws and all that, and that kind of works all together. And that's a wonderful thing. But you know what? You read Shakespeare and you will understand what evil lurks in the hearts of men. He understood humanity, right? And the ancient Greeks understood politics and understood culture, and they understood how to, that they were people just like we are, except we have the internet. So I think that's
we've got the internet, the internal combustion engine, airplanes. That's about it, right?
Oh, and I have a table saw that when I touch the blade, the saw will retract and cut off my fingers. So, but it's like I can't. I guess I think it's pretty obvious that here on this podcast we're fairly conservative individuals. I think we are not without our
biases.
Well, we certainly have our biases, and I have my preferences. I'm certainly we're very obviously Catholic, but I think we certainly are not people without compassion, and we want to understand. I think we want to take care of people, but we want to live in the real world, and we want to understand that there are some things that are fundamentally true. There are some things that are true, like man is fallen. That's
pepperoni goes with pizza.
Yeah, you will find evil if you go look for it, as long as you know what it looks like, and you just have to be careful on those things. And there are people in the past that have lived that have figured certain things out, and our goal isn't to go back to that age. Our goal is to take what they knew to be true and apply it in our current age. And I think that's the real trick. I don't think we have to go back to 1950. I don't think we have to go back to 1975. I don't think we have to go back we don't have to go back. We have to look back there, find out what they knew to be true, and make sure we apply it now in 2023 to get through what either you or Zach called the stupidest time in the history of the world.
So it was probably come from Zach, not from me.
I think it was Zach. He said, "Dad, we live in the stupidest time." Yes, I think that's true. So that's those are the things I've learned. I've learned so much in the last 3 years. Like when I look through this list of these episodes, like we talked about the Mongols, they were brutally barbarous group of people.
Brutal barbarians?
They were brutal barbarians, right? But once they established the culture, then they just were like, maybe we shouldn't kill everybody. Maybe we should just trade with everybody. And they became like everything about the Mongols. They were like the world's greatest empire thing. They had an empire as big as Rome, but they don't get any credit because, Genghis Khan.
Sure.
Right?
Well, I'm kind of dragging you back in here a little bit.
Yeah.
Mostly because I made a comment earlier. But you tell people you do a podcast with your son.
Yes, I do.
And they apparently think it's just the greatest thing on the planet.
And I have to say, it is one of the great things on the planet. I do a podcast now with my other son. I do, and sometimes I say I do a podcast with my sons. And we keep trying to get Zach back in. He was like, "Dad, I'm busy." But no, it's a wonderful thing. And it guarantees, I don't know, there are people out there that are my age that don't ever talk to their kids anymore. And they have some lament. And I went back to my reunion. I talked about things I do. And people thought that was awesome. People that I worked with in the past, they thought it was a great thing. And I'm just delighted that we get to do this and talk about real stuff instead of just like who won the football game. I mean, we'll talk about that after we get off the thing. But that's it's a wonderful thing. And this show goes on every week, and we keep doing it, and we get listeners, and I hope we're providing them something. And I just like to share this wonderful experience, this road that I'm on. I just want to see how wonderful it is, and we get to chat, and we cross generational boundaries, and all sorts of good stuff happens.
Yeah, and eventually, when people leave us a 5-star review, we get brownies and cookies and cake and a whole bunch of things.
Wonderful things happen. So, yeah. So anyway,
all right, what else you got for me?
Well,
we have one or two more.
Well, I think I want to ask this question, because I want to ask a listener, not a listener question, a question to the listeners. If there's anything you're looking for that you'd like more of or less of, right? So,
Please stop talking.
Please stop talking. Can I go now? I need to. My wife's calling me for dinner. It was like, no, honey, I'm listening to the buff. Science, technology, history, philosophy, leadership, success. Are we covering what you need? Do you need more recipes? Is there
link to a free recipe?
Is there more stuff? Should we bring on more big brain smart heads to talk about anything in particular? I know we're working getting some people in to do some episodes, but that's kind of a spoiler, so I'm not going to tell you what that is yet. But what do you need from us? Let us know, bufnagle@bufnagle.com, and we will answer your questions. Sometimes maybe Harry will answer your questions kind of like God answers prayers.
Nice.
Might be like, no, not this time.
or when you say, dear God, I need some patience, grant me patience. He provides you with all the opportunities to have patience.
Yeah,
so you just end up losing your mind.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So is there something you really want? Let us know, and we will take it on our infinite wisdom and decide how to appropriately answer that. So anyway, again, thanks for all the questions. This is like I said, it's great to have some feedback on this, and tell a friend to listen. You get a free episode.
Excellent. I hope you all enjoyed listening to that. I hope you learned something today, either about us or about yourself, or do a little bit of self-reflecting. But we hope you go out there and remember to seek the good, be the good, and spread the good, and enjoy the adventure of life. Boop, 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 boop.